Okay, online. All set?
Yep.
Okay, now it's 7:09. We're a little bit late, but that's okay. We're in an open session. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded and televised by our local cable company. I need a motion to approve bill and payroll warrants. Motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? I need a roll call vote. Mr. Bezanson?
Yes.
Mr. Kowalski?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Lamatina?
Yes.
And Mr. Salvucci says yes. I need a motion to approve and accept the correspondence in the read file. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Who motioned? Who motioned?
Brian.
Brian motioned.
Carl.
Carl second. Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Bezanson?
Yes.
Mr. Kowalski?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Lamatina?
Yes.
Mr. Salvucci votes yes. Okay, next on the agenda is Town Administrator's report.
Yes, there are two things I have to talk about, and they both relate to personnel. The Council on Aging Director, Barbara Garvey, has announced her intent to retire. Barbara's been with us ever since Pat McCarthy left, and she's ready to take a less stressful role. The Council on Aging will, of course, have to seek candidates to appoint a new director. That process is outlined in the authorization for the Council on Aging. So I just wanted to let anyone who's interested out there know that there will be an opening for the director for the Council on Aging. My second item, Michelle Hayes, who works in our collector's office, is retiring on April 30th. The position she holds is critical. She is the Assistant Treasurer Collector. Mary Beth would like to begin immediately seeking a replacement. I'm a little concerned about trying to develop applicants with what's going on today. But I also want to be sure that we are responsive to Mary Beth's concerns, and I'd like to work with her in the next week or two to see if we can come up with a process that'll begin a search for that employee.
Well, we'll be putting an article in the Beacon, right?
Yeah, well, not necessarily the Beacon. You're not going to draw someone from far away. It's a level 3 union position, so it's a position that we want to hire, preferably from within the confines of the town, because
Right.
the successor would have to be a Whitman resident if Mary Beth were to retire. And if you're looking to train somebody and do succession planning, you certainly would want to focus that way. I'm not saying that's the way it'll end up, but I think we should at least start on that process. So I'm recognizing, I believe that this is going to be a very difficult time to do this because we're not going to be bringing people in and interviewing them immediately. But I'd like to get the thoughts of the board in terms of starting the process and perhaps running an ad in a few weeks to see if we can get interested candidates.
Frank, are you going to run an ad for both the Council of Aging Director and?
No, council has to run their own.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Wow, hearing none. Next on our budget is...
Are we still connected?
We still connected?
Yeah, yes, you are.
Okay.
Okay, just to make sure.
Thank you.
All right, no comments. All right, next on the agenda is budget review. Is there one?
The Finance Committee is meeting tonight to review Article 2. Well, I'll cover it later when we get down to the town meeting schedule, but they're working on a draft right now.
Okay. All right, thank you, Frank. Next on the agenda under new business is vote on the MOU for Local 1769 IAFF AFL-CIO. We need a motion to,
So moved.
do I hear a second?
Second. Brian.
Okay, any discussion?
This is a one-year agreement to extend the existing collective bargaining agreement. The marginal cost for the agreement will be 2%. It includes a 2% increase for those employees, and there are provisions in the agreement that benefit both the union and the town. And I'd like to recommend a positive vote.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we need a roll call vote. Mr. Bezanson?
Yes.
Mr. Kowalski?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. LaMattina?
Yes.
Mr. Salvucci votes yes. Next on the agenda on the new business is act to declare four Smith hydrants, 6 Darling hydrants, and 1 Kennedy hydrant, and 6 antique hydrants, various manufacturers, as surplus, and authorize the CPO to dispose of said hydrants through a public auction. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Hear a second?
Brian.
Carl and Brian.
Colin Bryan. All right, any discussion on this? Again, roll call vote. Mr. Bezanson?
Yes.
Mr. Kowalski?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. LaMattina?
Yes.
And Mr. Salvucci says yes. Under new business again, authorize Public Works to dispose of the skate park equipment. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Hear a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Okay, many years ago, probably about 15 of them,
Yeah.
we had this great idea to set up a skate park, and we brought in equipment, I think it was from the town of Dedham, and we stored it over at the Memorial Field behind the bleachers. It became difficult for us to begin a skate park for a number of reasons, least of which was our insurers
Yeah.
were not very keen on insuring the town for any injuries or lawsuits that came from the use of the park. The enthusiasm of the group that had originally generated this interest seemed to wane. So it's been sitting there for the last 14 or 15 years, and what's happened is it's deteriorated. The rebar's showing, concrete's broken, and it's now more an attractive nuisance than anything else. The DPW has purchased new equipment that gives them the ability to pulverize concrete, and they would like permission from the board to do that and use the materials as aggregate in future projects.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this?
I have a comment, it's Brian.
Okay.
As you almost everybody knows, that I was the chair of that committee back in '04 when we had the hubbub about skateboarders getting arrested. We put together a committee to try to raise money for this park, to try to give a place where these kids could go so there wouldn't be a public nuisance and get arrested again. And with all good intentions, this was a good idea at the time. And we did fundraise, and we were lucky enough to get this equipment because Dedham was dismantling their park because they were building a new building and a new school. And so all we had to do was take it away, and DPW was gracious enough to stay with us, and we took it down with the help of Situate Pipe, which cost about $3,000 or $4,000 from them and their equipment. As Frank said, it seemed to be doomed from the start because we were in big negotiations with tearing down the Holt School issue and all the asbestos issues, and ultimately building the police station. It seemed to set us back further, and it was an unfortunate way that it ended up. I'm disappointed that this didn't come through for the kids of Whitman. However, I'm in agreement that this particular idea has passed us by, and we should clean up that area, and hopefully DPW can have some other use for that product, and that we can move forward. And it was a private committee that we just put together, so we still have our bank account and our funds, and we'll look to the future to see how we can properly help the town in some way or fashion going forward. So it's my opinion that this would be the right move.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, I need a roll call vote. Mr. Bezanson?
Yes.
Mr. Kowalski?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. LaMattina?
Yes.
Mr. Salvucci votes yes. All right, next on the agenda, discuss town meeting schedule. Frank?
Yes, as you know, our bylaw requires or calls for our annual town meeting the first Monday in May, which is May 4th, I believe, and our election on the third Saturday in May, which is May 16th. Either last week or the week before, the town of Hanson met and voted to change their town meeting to June 15th, I guess in order to give them more time to prepare for the things that they're doing. I have discussed our schedule with the chair of the Finance Committee and with individually with a couple of selectmen, as well as some department heads. And I believe that the town of Whitman is able to meet the May 4th schedule. So the question of whether we meet on the 4th or delay it would, at least in part, be whether it's necessary to do that where Hanson has changed their schedule. I'm not that sure we need to make any changes to our schedules. But
I would think, this is Carl, I would think the only thing that would get in the way of a May 4th meeting or a May 16th election is the coronavirus pandemic.
well, interesting that you mentioned that. I forwarded to you shortly, just about an hour ago, the town of Southwick is holding their town meeting, might even be tonight now that I think about it,
You kidding? How many people in the town? 10?
in a parking lot. They're suggesting that their residents carpool and park behind the school and then meet in the field. Really interesting approach.
And so flash the lights once at the A and flash the lights twice at the May.
So I guess there's options other than
Town Park, Frank, Town
a
Park.
town meeting, but we don't know now what's going to happen on May 4th. We don't know that we'll be ready from a social standpoint to meet or not. But one of the features that are being offered or voted to make available to the various communities is the ability of the Board of Selectmen to reduce quorum in order to hold meetings where you don't want to pack, 150 people on the floor of the town auditorium. So I don't know that it's something that has to be decided tonight, but I did want to bring it up to make sure everyone is aware that the town of Hanson did change their schedule, and interestingly enough, also changed their election, which the town clerk is suggesting that we don't need to do.
Okay, I have one question. Okay, go ahead, Carl. Go ahead, Carl.
I was Justin. I have a
Justin.
question about the town election. My understanding, at least right now, is that absentee voting is only available if you are absent from the town on election day, physically disabled, or have a religious belief. Is there any movement at the state level to allow us to open that up or further allow?
There is, but there's also a provision if you are concerned about your health, being able to vote in person versus voting by absentee ballot. And I expect we're going to see an extraordinary number of absentee ballots for the election.
Yeah, possibility. Okay, Dan, I have one question from Dan, from me. Frank, what's the latest date that we can make the decision whether or not to post town meeting to another date?
Town meeting
I mean, do we,
is
by
May.
law, do we need to give 2 weeks' notice, or whatever? You know, especially town elections also.
I would say May 6th, April, I'm just looking at the dates. I would say mid to late April. You
So
need
like around the
20
14th,
days.
like the 13th?
Yeah, you need 20 days.
Yeah.
And the clerk has offered to come and meet with the board to talk about it if you wanted to do that.
Yeah. Or 20 days you need.
Yeah. So
That's almost a full month.
I don't know that, yeah, but the election isn't until the 16th.
Oh, true, yeah, I'm talking about town meeting, okay.
And as far as town meeting goes, the meeting has to be posted at least 7 days before the meeting is scheduled.
Okay.
So there is time there.
Right.
And then, you know, normally we don't utilize that time, but this is an extraordinary time. The other question, and I'm waiting for an answer from council on, is our quorum for an annual town meeting is 50 voters. Our quorum for a special town meeting is 150 voters. So I'm questioning whether we may be able to place questions that would normally be on the special town meeting warrant onto the annual town meeting warrant with a vote that would take effect in the current fiscal year, so that we're not dealing with two different quorum requirements.
Right, I can understand that, but it would be,
still
I
waiting
think it
for
would
an
be a
answer to
separate,
that.
still a separate warrant, because,
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be if you combine them.
yeah, but the thing is, the special town meeting, monies that are used have to be in the previous year's.
That's why I'm saying it would specify the
Okay.
effective date of the vote.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm waiting for an answer on that. The other option, of course, we have is to hold an annual and a special the same night and change the quorum for both.
Yeah,
So we have options.
yeah, okay. Any further questions on that issue?
I would just like to see it, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Randy, go ahead.
Rather than just getting into, changing dates, let's see where we do have some time. My recommendation would just be maybe let's put this off until
Agreed.
one of the April meetings and see how this situation is playing out.
Yeah.
And I just think with time that rather than getting into pushing it so far close to the end of the fiscal year, that could be a little risky in itself. And we do have time. So
I agree.
think to hold off and see how the coronavirus issue plays out over the next couple of weeks isn't going to hurt us.
Good
Well,
thought.
you're absolutely right, Randy. And the other thing that we have in our favor is there are a number of towns who had earlier town meetings that have rescheduled theirs to sometime over the next couple of weeks, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle their meetings. It may be informative to us.
Interesting. Okay, anything else, Frank?
I guess that's it.
That's
The
it?
meeting schedule for April.
Yeah, all right, we need to look at the April meeting schedule. Looking at I'd like to see it me personally, as later, like we'll say the first meeting, we say April 14th, we'll say a little bit later to see if in fact we can meet as a regular meeting or we have to do this again.
Well, the only disadvantage to that is the second meeting may not leave you enough time to do
28th?
things you want to do.
Yeah.
So
You're suggesting what, the 7th and the 21st?
I would suggest, unless it's a conflict for people, to plan on the 7th and the 21st. It gives us time to see what's going on and to figure out what direction the town wants to take.
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, it's fine.
Brian?
Yeah, that works for me.
Yeah.
The other point I'd like to make, this meeting is being done by way of a conference call, which so far seems to have worked pretty well. However, the Cable Access Committee cannot continue to accommodate meetings this way. So beginning with our next meeting, the meetings will be held in an electronic format through Zoom. Similar to what we're doing now, everybody will call in, but Zoom does have the ability to capture video as well as voice if people want to self-identify as a little picture on the screen. And no one needs to be in this room to hold that meeting because everyone will be connecting remotely. I will certainly collect the information necessary and disseminate it to the board, and myself and Josh will make sure that everybody's equipped.
So you do it on your, right, on
do
your
it.
iPad or your...
Your iPads will work perfectly for that.
Okay. Anything else?
It's actually, it's my understanding that the school committee will be meeting that way tomorrow, so it'll be a pretty good judge of the technology.
Interesting.
Cable
Well,
access
that's
channel.
right. We can't go there, can we?
So are they going to put out, the web, the link that we can go on and watch it?
I assume
It'll
so.
be aired on the cable channel.
Oh, it'll be aired on the cable channel, okay. Thank you, Justin. Okay, that being said, if there's nothing else, I need a motion to adjourn
So moved.
by Carl, second.
Second, Brian.
Brian, okay, roll call vote. Brian?
Yes.
Mr. Kowalski?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. LaMattina?
Yes.
Salvucci is yes. We are adjourned.